Hello, this is Dora Tarver from e-projectmanagers.com, and I wanted to share with you a answer to a question someone recently asked me. I pasted their question here. They basically asked that they needed to know how to establish a formula that will monitor the parameters of comparing actual start and finish dates to the baseline start and finish dates. And as many of you have already seen my stoplight status video where I walk you through how to create stoplight status. In this video I'm going to walk you through how to create a graphical indicator that will flag you when your start and finish states are different from your baseline start and finish dates. Okay? So the first thing you need to do is open up a project schedule. Let's say you have a schedule, a template that you've created, and you've filled in some tasks. Now what I've done on this screen is I've just put placeholders in for tasks, so you can get the general idea. Your task and your project schedule and your deliverables would be written in as needed. Then what you would need to do is, after you've entered your task in your project schedule, you would then baseline your project schedule. And to baseline your project schedule, you would go to the menu Tools, select Tracking in Project 2007, and then select Set Baseline. Now I've already done this for this project. I set it for the entire project, and what happens then is you insert the baseline columns. I'm going to hide these for now. Just in case you don't recall how to insert a column, literally you just go to where you want the column to appear, you click on the column header, and you right click and select Insert Column, and if you hit the letter B it goes to the B section, and I selected Baseline Start, and then I right click, select Insert Column, and then I hit the letter B and I went to Baseline Finish. Okay. Now let me just expand these columns here so you can see the data. Okay, so now once you have your baseline start and finish columns available, you can test your formula and see if it's working. You don't necessarily need to have your baseline start and finish columns visible throughout your project lifecycle. You can always hide and show them once you've captured the baseline. So once you have your baseline column, then you create your status column. And how I did that was I again right-clicked and I inserted a column. I inserted a numeric column. Now if I hit the letter N, it scrolls down to the N section, and my numeric column, I selected number 1 and I named the column Status Actuals versus Planned. Okay, if this was new, when you insert it, you would type the title and whatever name you're going to give it, and then you click on OK, and then you see that here. Now let me hide this because I'm not using that. Once you've typed your column and you've given it a title, then you right-click on it and you select from the menu Custom Fields. From the Custom Field dialog box, you'll see here you can rename your column, which is what I did. I gave this column a name, and then you add the formula. So I went in to add a formula. Now this formula I'm going to copy and put onto a page in the VIP section, so you'll be able to access this information. But let me just walk you through what this formula is. I'm going to make the font a little bigger here so you can see it. Now what I'm doing is I'm using what's called the switch function. Okay, and in Microsoft Project the functions are something that you select from this button here. It says Function. Switch is under General. You can see Choose, If, Is Numeric, Is Null, and Switch. So I selected the Switch function. You can always go to Help if you need to understand what the functions do. But basically this is the formula that I pasted in here. And let me just delete this for a second and walk you through what I did. So I selected Switch, and it pasted this in. Basically, Switch evaluates two expressions and produces the results based on what those expressions are. So in this case, what I did was, in my first expression, I was checking to see if the start date, which is a field, if I go to Date and select Start, is greater than the baseline date. So if I go to start, if I go to date, select baseline start. So if the start is greater than the baseline start, meaning it's starting later than what is planned, and the finish equals the baseline finish, then I'm going to return a value which is 1, and I'm going to make that 1 yellow. I'll show you how I do that later. In expression 2, the logic will be if the finish is greater than the baseline finish, and, by the way, you can type and or just click on this button here to put and in, and the start, where are we, is greater than the baseline start, or, click on the or button here, the finish is greater than the baseline finish. And if this is true, then the value will be number 2, which I'm going to make red. And then if neither of these are the case, then true is 0, and I'm going to return 0 to be green. Okay? So that's literally what I did. So basically what we're saying is we're going to, if the start is greater than the baseline start, meaning it's starting later than it should, and the finish date equals the baseline finish, and the reason why we do this is because if we didn't put this logic in, then we have to be able to control when the baseline, if the baseline finish, if the finish was a different date, then we want the row to turn red, because if the finish is not the baseline finish, we want that graphical indicator to turn red. So we have to actually build the logic this way so that the yellow will change to red. If we didn't do this, it would stay yellow when the baseline date moves out. So the next part of this is if the finish is greater than the baseline finish and the start is greater than the baseline start, or the finish is greater than the baseline finish, then it'll be red. Okay? Else true. So in the graphical indicators section, we simply select equals from the list. Click on the drop down arrow, select equals, and you would type in the number 1, which I selected the graphical indicator yellow. So this is when it should have started and it didn't. I already typed in 2 and 0. 2 is going to be red and 0 is green. So I've already done this. And in our project schedule right now, you can see that the baseline, let's just pick a row here, the baseline start equals the actual start right now. But let's just say the actual start is later. What happened in this case was because I made this on the 5th, it moved the end date out 1 date. So let me make this 2 days. So if this is 2 days, let's say this ends still on, actually this isn't a good example. Let me choose a different one here. I'm going to change these dates back because this is only 1 day, so it's gonna, if we move it out, it's gonna, the finish date will change. I want to illustrate something to you. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so okay, this is 5 days. This will be easier to see what I'm trying to illustrate. So in this case, the baseline is June 5th, and the start is June 5th. But if it moves to June 8th, then see what this did is it moved the finish date out. I'm going to put the finish date back. If it changes to a start date of June 8th, then the start will indicate 1, which is yellow. So the baseline start was the 5th, now it's the 8th, so this is yellow. Notice that the finish is still the 11th, okay? But if the finish changes and moves past the 11th and becomes the 12th, then this row becomes red. And the reason why the rest of these change color is because the predecessor column has been filled in with the relationships to all the tasks. So there's a domino effect, a cascading effect. When this date changed, it moved everything else below it out, which means everything else is now later than the original planned finish date. So this is one way. Let's say that this still starts on the 11th for some reason. We'll remove the link, then all these others go back to their regular dates. But anyway, by inserting a column, you can control through the custom fields via a formula the logic of how the graphical indicators appear. Project has functions that you can apply, and you can always look up help to understand how to use these functions. So that's how you do it. Now, what I'm going to do, for those of you who are in the VIP program, I'm going to paste this formula out there so you can play with it on your own. And on the page where I have this formula, I'll also include a description of what the formula is, and I'll also include a link to a page that I found online that gives you some examples of how this formula can be used. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you very much for your time. Have an excellent day.